What's up, everybody? It is Callings and Careers. I'm Christopher Harris.
And I'm Jessica Canty.
And we are going to be coming to you at least twice a month as we kick off this brand new year. I'm so excited for this new incredible platform and conversation known as Callings and Careers. I'm Christopher Harris. This is my co-host. We're co-hosting this thing together. It's going to be so much fun. And what we're calling this is Christ-Centered Career Coaching Conversations. Jessica is a life and career coach extraordinaire, strategist, and all that kind of good stuff. She gonna get you together. Y'all hear what I'm saying? She's gonna get you together. I'm a pastor and a coach and a CEO, and we are very, very honored to have you jump in with us today. And I don't know how many of y'all are watching. You may watch this live, you may watch this later on demand, but we're really excited about it. And especially today with our very first conversation, we're going to be talking about the Great Resignation. Man, there's so much to talk about with that. But before we do that, Jessica, tell everybody a little bit really fast about who you are and a little bit about your background, and we'll jump in from there.
Hey, Cubicle Country. I'm Jessica Canty. I am your life and career strategist. I have a passion for helping melanin millennial moms who want high achieving careers. And so I started a business to help those who are trying to balance their books and the budget along with the laundry. So I love talking about all things career. And I think it's such an opportune time to talk about it in the month of January. It's a new year. It's a new opportunity for us to explore what we want from our career. So I'm thrilled about it.
Come on, you said budget and laundry at the same time.
Such is my life. Such is my life as a mom, definitely having to balance the both.
Like literally right now, real life is happening right around you, right? Like moving, unpacking, baby, kids, all that stuff.
And then sprinkle in a little bit of a pandemic on top of that. It's been a bit of a wonky Wednesday, a little bit of a wonky season, if you will. But that's a part of the beauty of being able to help people in really determining what they want from their career so that they can get the life that they want that is supplemented by their career. So I'm excited to be able to talk about that.
That's so funny. And so Jessica's website is at the bottom of the screen. You guys can check that out there. Go follow her on social media. And of course, her social media name is there under her name. And of course, I'm Christopher Harris, and I'm so honored to be here with you all. Jessica and I have been praying and planning this now for about maybe 6 months or so, and very, very much looking forward to all the discussions and the fruit that'll come from that. And so there's my website there at the bottom of the screen. You can go and connect with me there on social media and all that kind of jazz as well and online. I am a executive pastor at a church here in Tampa, Florida, better known as Tampa Bay. And I also lead a company called diversechurchjobs.com, where we help people of color in ministry find ministry opportunities. But also that part of that means helping candidates get developed in their careers. And so we're committed to having these discussions. And as Jessica and I lean in together, this is going to be so insightful. But guess what? You don't have to be in ministry full time or even trying to pursue ministry full time to glean from the discussions that we're going to have. This is really about your career. This is really about developing you as a person, developing you as a leader. And it's going to be so, so good and so insightful. So y'all hit the like button, the subscribe button, the follow button. Make sure you're connected with us. And that way you'll be able to go live with us. Listen, this is real life for real, y'all, because just before we went live, my voice decided to try to do something different. And I don't know what's going on, because I got to talk like 4 more times a day. So we got to figure this out. But nonetheless, we keep it moving. That's what real life is about. So, Jessica, what is the Great Resignation? What is that?
So, it's really interesting because when I first heard the term coined, I was like, how opportune. Like I completely understood what was taking place just by those 3 simple words. Mm-hmm. So it's essentially explaining what economists and what the market is saying about how employers are struggling to find employees to fill necessary positions, and how people are just saying enough is enough. Mm-hmm. I want to have a certain work-life balance. I deserve to be treated a certain way when I'm at work. So people are literally willing to go without a salary to determine their path in their career, to determine, is it time to pivot? Is it time to stay? Is it time to, to decide, do I need a promotion? Do I need a raise? So it's a great resignation because it's not any one profession. You can tell that, but if you go to your local fast food place, go to your grocery store, to your gas station, they're short staffed because people are really deciding, am I being treated well here? You know what? People literally have left their jobs and said, I would rather not know about where my next paycheck is coming than to stay in this space any longer. So that makes it so much more impactful. And so you couldn't have chosen a better term other than the great resignation. It's definitely a shift in the job market.
Yeah, I read, can't remember exactly where I saw it, but I read one quote or one description of the Great Resignation that said that it is a huge shift in employee mindset, right? A huge shift in employee mindset. And obviously the culture of a company, the work-life balance, all those things that are important factors in not just finding new players, team members, but retaining them, right? That the quality of their life is bettered because they work in your company, and folks are just making different kinds of decisions now, and all those kinds of good things. So we got some things that I think that you'll share today that'll be very, very insightful. It was interesting to me, excuse me, to see some of the statistics that have been released around the Great Resignation. And to be clear, I mean, if you just Google the Great Resignation, I mean, there are a gazillion. I just made that word up. There's a whole lot of articles and statistics around the Great Resignation, and the consistent statement is there's a record number of workers who are quitting their jobs. As recent as January 4th, the numbers show that 4.5 million people voluntarily left their positions this past November. 4.5 million people.
And that's before the Christmas season. So something going on.
That's exactly what I was thinking, right? Like when I saw that stat, I'm like, man, that's strong that people would say, I am willing to leave my job before the holiday season. Like that's bananas.
Absolutely. It's that mindset, like you said. Yeah.
That's a whole nother level. So then you have that. And so there's this term. I didn't know that this was a term until I started preparing for our show today and for our conversation today. But there's a term that they call it the quit rate. So the Bureau of Labor Statistics and the Department of Labor has this thing called the quit rate. And the quit rate, QUIT, is like off the charts, right? So since April of 2021 to present, 33 million people have left their positions during that period. That's so for people that are trying to wrap their minds around that is 1/5 of the total U.S. workforce. 1/5. So when you think about change and transition, you think about the stability of companies, you think about the growth of companies. That's a major hit. That's a major hit. And, you don't have to look far, Jessica, to see this like in everyday life, because like if you go to get some food, you go to get your car service, it's like the customer service has gone down a little bit because these are new people and they're like, okay, well, fire me then. I'll find another job.
Absolutely.
What do we do with all of this?
And, we even see it like, unfortunately, it's trickling down. So usually we don't hear about this when it's impacting people who have lower salaries or on the low income side or minorities. But now it's impacting people who have money, people who have influence. They are willing to have conversations with potential employees about what they want or how to retain them, like you were mentioning earlier. But now when we see that when we go to the grocery store, there's left on the shelves, when we're trying to book with other professionals, like thinking about going to our doctor's office, like it has to be done even more in advance because even they are short staffed. And
Yeah.
so when I hear this about that quit rate, ooh, I leaned in on that quit rate because prior to the pandemic, a lot of the research that I did around why do people quit their jobs? Why do people want to transition in their career? A lot of times it's the boss. People are willing to quit their employer, not necessarily the company, not necessarily the particular profession, but because of the way that they're treated by their bosses, people will actually take a pay cut if they know that that means they don't have to work for that particular boss anymore. And
People don't quit organizations, they quit people.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And the numbers don't lie. You just said it. The quit rate is there. That is why it's the great resignation. Anytime you think about the holiday season starting typically around that November timeframe, that's when everybody's trying to, catch every sale and everything like that. When people are willing to walk off the job in that crucial time for people to think about their finances. So we know that there's this great shift happening. So the question is, what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about this opportune time where we see this shift happening in our country and it's labeled the Great Resignation? I hope as a career coach, when I hear that, I hear an opportunity to leverage it, for a transition, for a promotion, for a raise, to think about what am I getting from my career? And so I've got 3 questions, but I can't wait. We can get into those in a little while. But when you were saying that, I was just thinking, the career coach me is saying, so what are you going to do about it? How are you going to take advantage of those numbers? Because like you said, I didn't even realize the numbers had gotten that high. I knew how high they were, but what I also want people to hear in those numbers is that it's across the board. So for the person who's thinking, I'm in a toxic work environment, I don't like the work that I'm doing, but you're afraid to leave because what does that say about you? I want you to know that a lot of people are deciding to leave. You're amongst good company, that we are looking at how to have that wonderful work-life balance and show up for ourselves and our families in a different way. I think the last 2 years has taught us that we are able to do that.
Yeah. I want to ask you a question, Jessica, before you go into the 3 or 4 ideas of how to leverage this. Because I guess I wonder, as people think about their careers, not just in the short term, but also in the long term, like, should people just be quitting just because other people are quitting?
It's a good question. I'm going to answer that yes, no, and maybe. Okay.
Oh, Lord. Okay. All right.
I got 2 answers for you. Yes, no, and maybe. Absolutely. Because see, and this is something I've often thought about as well. And I think you kind of alluded to it when you were chatting, that unfortunately, if other people are quitting work, then that means that the people who are remaining, their workload is going to be heavier. Especially if you're in those type of tongue-tied professions like the service industry. So we see that even with our medical providers. So we see a lot of burnout in nurses and doctors. I literally read the other day about a nurse who was so burned out because other people quit their work that she became a truck driver.
I saw that article.
Yeah. You know what I'm talking about, right? Right. And so that's why I say, yes, it is an opportunity to make that transition. Of course, you've got to make sure it aligns with your values, your system of belief, and it's going to work best for you and the people that you love. But yes, I absolutely say yes, because unfortunately, that means that the workforce is going to be strained. I'm going to say no if you have not answered the 3 questions I'm going to give to you. So I would say don't do anything until you answer these 3 questions. And I will get to that in a moment. So no. And then maybe because sometimes it may mean that you quit the role that you're in and have the conversation about what promotion is available or what department can you switch to. So it's a little bit of, it's a giving up of one particular role and operating in your gifts in a different space. So that's why I say yes, no, and maybe.
Like, and I love that answer. I feel like that there are some people who have not thought long-term about their upward trajectory and are just flying by the seat of their pants and their emotions right now.
Yeah.
And, I've had some discussions with people who are like, well, God will bless me. And I'm like, yeah, but God don't need to bless your stupidity. Like, you quit for no reason. Did I say that online? Did I say that line?
You might have stepped on some toes there.
But seriously, I'm just like some people are being driven by their feelings right now. And like, a part of the role, on a job, your boss, your leader they have a right to tell you what to do. Like you can't be on a job saying to people, you can't tell me what to do. No, if you're an employee, your boss is going to tell you what to do.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so, yeah,
I think people are being influenced by their emotions and also by social media as well, because our emotions will overshadow the evidence, and the evidence is that your bills are going to come like clockwork. So it don't matter what your boss told you. The evidence says you got to put gas in your car. Okay. So, and trust me, this is coming from a mental health practitioner. I am a clinical social worker. So I do deal with people's emotions, and I do know that the workspace does impact our emotions, but you can't let it overshadow the evidence that you do, in fact, need health insurance. You do. Yeah. In a pandemic, you need health insurance. So you want to make wise transitions and wise moves. And then social media can really glamorize this life of an entrepreneur. Listen, and I know you know it, but the life of an entrepreneur is glamorized. Oh, it's your own schedule. And oh my goodness, I'm living my best life and I've got this morning routine. No, listen. Whether you are an employee of another boss or not, an entrepreneur is an employee. They're an employee to their client. So please don't choose this boss up life, that everybody's glamorizing and being your own employee or your own employer, and forget that everybody has a boss. Everybody has a boss. And so you have to make a determination about, whether or not that boss is good for you and your mental health. Of course, I'm an advocate for that, but you want to make sure you make a wise decision. Go right ahead.
I was just going to say, and when you're an entrepreneur, you actually have more bosses, right? You have more accountability, and people forget that. Like
you got the IRS, you got the website that's telling you need to make sure you pay for this website. You have to do all these things. You got your marketing team telling you what to do. So absolutely, you have a boss if you're an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I feel like, and then I want to get into your 3 points here. There's a part of me that feels like with this whole idea around the Great Resignation that, depending on your industry, your career, depending on what level of the organization you're in. So like if you're in a C-suite or if you're trying to be a boss in the future, those kinds of things, even though you may have the opportunity to resign or quit from certain jobs, you still have to prove that you can do the work.
Absolutely.
So like if you just start a job, but you're being this idea of quitting and going to the next job to earn more money, after a certain point, if you keep jumping jobs, but you haven't proved where you can get results, then in the long term, I feel like that hurts you. Yes? No?
Okay, again, yes, no, and maybe.
Okay. Okay.
Yes, no, and maybe. Because a part of the career conversation I have with my clients around their path planning, on that career path planning, is thinking about their industry. So certain industries, it's understandable, like there's a high turnover rate. So, so for instance, child welfare. That's where I've shared my gifts and talents before, and I know that there's a high turnover rate for that. So most employers, if they're looking for someone in that profession, if you only work for a company for 6 months, it's understandable. Or if you're fresh out of college, it's understandable because you only worked really like during your breaks and things of that nature. So that's okay. But the other thing is, you really want to think about how to present that, how to brand that. And so if your resume has a lot of gaps in it, that's where that definitely, like, don't just keep quitting and moving without strategy around how to present that. Because you're absolutely right. Because people will read that and say you're not loyal. What's to say I'm going to put all this money into training you and getting you ready to do the job and you won't quit after, 90 days. So you do have to be able to brand that in such a way that the company understands that you're available. Because the other side to it is, unfortunately, some people's resumes have gaps in it because people had to be laid off because of the pandemic. So some employers are thinking about that, but you've got to be able to answer the question, what's different? Like, what's different about my company is going to get you to stay here? Because think about people in the hotel industry or people who are working like in the restaurant industry. Some whole restaurants had to close down, whole gyms had to close down, whole businesses. So we don't want to discriminate on that. But if you're deciding, okay, after 30 days, I'm going to leave, you better know how to brand that thing to the next employer so they can feel like, okay, it's a worthwhile investment to give you our time, energy, and resources. So that's where that yes, no, and maybe comes in. You definitely want to make sure you're talking to industry experts and have a mentor and a coach in your corner to be able to leverage that in those multiple industries that you've experienced.
Yeah, I think that's so good, Jessica. That's so good. And even, like obviously my passion is helping people that are in ministry. And I think, it's really important, which I think falls in line with what you're talking about, that like legitimately people have to start considering how competitive do you look on paper, right? Like it's one thing for you to get an interview, but in many cases, you're going to be looked at on paper first. And so you got to be able to answer that question like, how competitive do I look on paper? And I think, to your point earlier about there's some opportunities before us to leverage. There's some opportunities there. And we might get into that here in a moment. So let's jump into what the points, the practical takeaways that you have for us today around this great recession and ways to leverage it.
Absolutely. So I've got to pull up my notes because I can get excited. I can talk about careers all day. It's going to keep me focused. One, you want to make sure you have a planner to keep yourself focused, right? So if you're a note taker like me, you want to go ahead and grab your paper, your pen. If you are catching this and you're on your lunch break, and I know you're about to go back and do some amazing things, you want to make sure you click like and click share this with somebody else, have a conversation about this, because I really want you to chew on these questions. And if you're a Christ girl like me, I really want you to take this into prayer about these 3 questions, because you'll be surprised what how important the answers to these 3 questions can be for your next career move. So again, the career coach in me likes to say, okay, what's going on in the industry and how can I leverage that? Why? Because I've got bills to pay. I got a child in private school. I like to make sure that I eat. And for some reason, I like to make sure the lights get turned on when I'm moving about my day, right? So here are the 3 questions that you want to ask yourself when you're thinking about some of the things that we talked about earlier. Should I quit? Should I stay? What should I do with all this information? Chris has gave us a whole lot of stats. So what do I do with those stats, right? Here's what you want to do. You want to ask these 3 questions to develop your unique leverage equation. Now, I'm slowing that down because there's a lot of career coaches out there, and there's a lot of different ways to get things done. And some of them don't talk about how you need to show up uniquely. So when you said, how do you look on paper? Oh, I had to lean in, because ultimately it's only going to be your name at the top of that resume. It's only going to be your name on the top of, whatever social media platform you're using to promote your skills. So what you want to think about are these 3 questions. The very first question you want to ask yourself is, what is no longer a luxury for me? Sounds a little bit strange, but I want you to ask yourself, what is no longer a luxury for me? So from 2020 to 2022, we have really had an opportunity to evaluate what's important to you in your life, right? And so some of the things that would have been bonkers to ask for back in 2019 are commonplace in 2022, like telework. I can remember there was a time where telework was seen, you're not really teleworking, you're just going on vacation. It's really not something, but we literally proved that we could be productive at home for the last 2 years and some change, right? And so you've got to ask yourself, what did you learn about you that you now know you're not willing to give up? So for example, I know that a lot of people were struggling around exercise and fitness. It was the exact opposite for me. Like I was really able to begin to exercise more frequently. I was really able to be more cognizant of my sleep patterns. So I'm no longer willing to give that up. So when I'm having a conversation with my supervisor, my superior, or if I'm conversing with a new potential employer, I need to be able to ask, what is the work-life balance here? What opportunities do you have for me when it comes to caring for my physical health? I know that I can bring my skills to bear for your company, and I'm going to make you money. I'm going to save you money. I'm going to connect you to opportunity, but I've got to know, what are you offering me? But you'll accept anything if you don't know what's no longer a luxury for you. If you think it's okay to go back to those patterns of toxic work environments, if you're not clear on what didn't work for you and what's no longer a luxury for you, like making sure that I have enough transportation funds. Some people would say, it was a luxury for me to be able to drive into the office and park near the office. If that's not a luxury, if that's no longer a luxury for you, you need to be able to do that every day. You want to think about that. What can your company do to provide that for you? So be very, very clear on what's no longer a luxury for you.
So Jessica, this is so good, man. Man, this is so good. I think that some people are making demands without data, though.
Ooh, that right there. Hashtag that. Demands without data.
Okay, we're
Are
going
dead. At that last one. Demands without data are dead. Absolutely. Yeah.
demands without data are dead.
Mm-hmm.
That's so good. Like I guess what I'm saying is like there are some people whose resumes I've seen
Mm-hmm.
who are putting a demand on a salary or a benefit, and you haven't earned that. Like if you this is no disrespect, okay? We're being honest in our discussion today. But like in certain careers, if you've not gotten past a bachelor's degree
Mm-hmm.
and you only have 5 years of experience, you can't come out the gate talking about I'm expecting a $90,000 salary. That's just not going to work. That's not realistic.
Mm-hmm.
That's demands without data.
And that's why when you propose your salary negotiation, it dies. you know, it's interesting because I really think that there's like two types of people. There are the type of people who don't have the experience, like you were talking about. Then there are those who have it but don't know how to brand it. Some people really don't know, or either they don't know that they have it. I'll put that third person. They don't know they have it. Like they're in that middle space. Do I have enough, or how do I brand what I do have? Because quite often, a lot of jobs do want to see your degree. However, some people with the degree don't have the experience. So even with 20 years experience, there's nothing on their resume that says why I should invest in you, which is why I can get on a tangent about that good resume. But just to your point, you want to make sure you are talking about numbers and results with your resume.
Yeah.
Because the person who's looking at your resume is only going to give it 7 seconds. 7 seconds.
How many?
7 seconds. Why do I know this? Because I actually used to review resumes and do pre-screening. I'm looking for why should I read further? Why should I read further? So what I'm looking for is numbers and results. And so you need to be able to have results language. Stop copying and pasting your previous job description. It's not going to cut it because I can put my name on it. Okay. So what I want to know is, what did you do? How were you innovative?
That's good.
You should be able to tell, like your resume should be able to tell me that your previous company should be crying and begging for you to come back. But if I just see you job hopping and there's no evidence that I want to work further with you, then I'm going to pass it on. I'll put it in the consider it pile. Some people will say the C file, which is, the can file, but we want to make sure I'll just put it to the side. And if I get down the list and I can't find a qualified candidate, I might have a conversation with you. Might being the big word.
Yeah. That's so good. And what's interesting is in my own personal life, Jessica, and this time is flying by so fast. But,
I know, right?
I realized that at a certain level for me in my career, and people are like, pastors have careers. Yeah, ministry is a career, right? It's like a legit career. I had to actually pay somebody. I had to invest in someone creating my resume. In other words, I couldn't just use a template and put some stuff together and then expect to be able to stand out. Like I legitimately had to do that. Let me just first, really fast, before you get to point number 2, let me acknowledge LaShawn. Good to have you on here. I see Kelly, Kaylee. Good to have you on here. Kaylee says, or do I have experience that will translate to another vocational sector? I have such a hard time figuring that out. That's so good. Kaylee, thank you for being on with us today. That's so good. And Kaylee looks like she's got like credentials. You see that alphabet?
Absolutely. Go, girl. I love it.
Yeah, I love it. All right, Jessica, give us point number 2.
Okay, so the second question, and this kind of goes along with Kaylee's credentials, a little bit what you were talking about as a pastor having those skills. The question now becomes, what new skills have you acquired? What new skills have you acquired?
That's
So,
good.
thinking with that same conversation around the resume, whenever I teach people how to write resumes, one of the things that I emphasize is that your resume must be updated every 6 months.
Yeah.
And it needs to highlight the 3 T's. And so, the 3 T's of resume writing that we're looking at is making sure that it is transformational language. Making sure
Mm,
it's transformational language, not task based. So
yeah.
we want anybody can say that I flipped a burger, but how did you revolutionize that burger? How did you make sure it got to their client even faster? What was
Please
the
don't talk about burgers right now. I'm fast.
how did you specialize on that celery stalk? Okay, bless the Lord, bless the Lord. Okay, how did you revolutionize that experience for the customer? So you want to make sure it's transformational language.
That's
You
good.
also want to make sure that it's the right tool for you. So
Hmm.
what can you show to highlight your skills? Because maybe you're like that nurse who went from being a nurse to a truck driver, and they're probably like, "How in the world are you going to sell this?" But if she knows that she's got excellent customer service, her assessment skills, because I mean, she's literally in the crisis. So she's going to know how to make sure that that truck doesn't drive off the road because she actually had to have it was life or death decision she was making. So
That's
she
good.
was able to, I assume she was able to highlight that transformational language. And so she was using the right tool as well. And that's probably we can say for another conversation, but are you using the right tool? Because there's different types of resumes, which most people don't know that there's different types because they're using that template. So they really don't know the different types of resumes that are out there. So you want to
Yeah.
stay away from task-oriented language. You want to make sure you're using transformational language. And you also want to make sure like I said, task, transformational, and that you are able to highlight any of those transitional or transferable skills that you had. I think that's what Kaylee
Mm,
was mentioning, those transferable skills. So, for instance, I am a licensed clinical social worker. However, I know that in the career space, I am able to assess based on people's responses to the questions of my skills and my clinical assessments, what is working for them, how their work is creeping into their lives, and how it may be toxic. So someone may say, I'm not quite sure, clinical social worker, career coach, but I make sure that I brand myself in such a way that I let you know that it's unique to have a career coach who has a clinical background. So
yeah.
when you're looking back at that and you're looking at the new skills you've acquired, make sure you think about how you transitioned, in this space. Some of us
Yeah.
may have not been well versed in Zoom or StreamYard, like I'm learning today. Some of us may have not learned that. Absolutely, LaShawn. It is being so very helpful to be bivocational. And so some of us may have even started a side hustle, which, maybe I'm showing a little bit of my cultural background. You may have started additional employment. And so how are those things? So how are those things allowing you to be a more versatile candidate?
Yeah.
How are you leveraging the podcast you listen to? What articles are you reading? What information, especially in the diversity and inclusion sector? This is a brand new emerging space that
Yeah.
anybody can really capitalize on, especially if you have a passion for history, a passion for identifying what's not working well in your work environment. Those are new skills. So you want to ask yourself, what new skills have you acquired? That's the second question you want to ask in order to leverage this.
This is so rich. And y'all, this is what callings and careers is going to be about. I'm telling y'all want to follow us. Y'all want to connect with us on social media. You want to hit that subscribe button on YouTube because we're going to be bringing the heat every single time we come in here. And so to the point, Jessica, and I don't have the stat in front of me, but I think something last year, like the professional and personal development industry grew by like over 300%, right? People are investing in their own growth and development. So that means to me then that people that are just resting on what they've already learned and what they've already done, they're going to be left behind. Here's the other thing that's really interesting. So when I launched diversechurchjobs.com, Jessica, my focus was on people that are in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
But as I started acquiring more candidates, I started acquiring also candidates that were international, like legit international candidates that are looking for ministry opportunities in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And one night it hit me, like, if you're applying for a job, your competition is not just Bob down your street.
My goodness.
Your competition is also David that is in the, United Arab Emirates, or that's in Japan, or that's in Australia, that also sees opportunities and postings online, or whatever, that's also trying to be, get in for that job. And these are people that are qualified. These are not people that are not qualified. They're legitimately qualified. So if you are not developing new skills, if your skills are outdated, and if your view is short-sighted and limited, you're going to, in effect, cancel yourself out because you haven't developed new skills to even be competitive.
Just saying. That's a mic drop moment. Just saying. Just saying.
That's good. So point number one is, what is no longer a luxury for me? That's so good. If y'all are coming in late, you need to go back and watch this from the beginning. Number two, what new skills have you acquired? What's point number three, Jessica?
The last question you want to ask yourself is, what would I rather be doing? I know that sounds crazy, but what would I rather be doing? So many times people assume that in order for them to get employed or ask for a promotion or a raise, it has to be their experience must be something that they were paid for. So it's, they often discredit the experience they've had in volunteer work, in ministry work, which is why when you say people don't think of that as a career, when it is, I really leaned in for that. You got to ask yourself, what would you rather be doing? So what do I mean by that? One of the ways that I was able to excel in my career was I marketed the skills that I did in my free time and my volunteer work. And this is no fabrication or anything like that. When I decided that I wanted to change positions in a particular company, I literally got a promotion and a $30,000 raise based on my experience I did outside of work. So what I did in my 5 to 9. And so if I had discredited and said, I'm just a dance mom. I just volunteer at the church, or, it's nothing big, I would have missed out on $30,000. And now since then, an additional $70K. So I'm making almost $100,000 more than I did based on the experiences where I did not get paid. So if you find yourself, over the last 2 years, you see a lot of things on social media floating around about people making bread or buying an air fryer, all of the trends that kind of happened over the time. But if you found a passion project, if you found that you were able to make more strategic connections based around a new hobby you started, you might want to leverage that into a transition in your career. I don't know, maybe you're starting to make soaps at home. Maybe you realize I'm really a good writer. That might be the leveraging point for either to get promotion in your current position or to make that career pivot into a space that you actually feel passionate about and get compensated for it. So ask yourself, rather than sitting in cubicle country, where are you destined to be? What would you rather be doing?
That's so good. That's so good. And there are options. There are options. Let me ask you two questions fast, Jessica, and then we'll wrap up for today. Again, I want you all to give us a follow. Jessica's social media is right there. Her handle, at Jessica Canty. My social media is right there at CJ Harris, ONE, CJ Harris 1. So the first question I guess I want to ask is this, because I think, and you alluded to this at the top of our discussion today, that there are some things in culture that are being glamorized. And the side hustle is definitely one of those things that's being glamorized. As a career coach, is there such a thing, in your opinion, of doing too much?
Absolutely. So I'll give you a direct answer. Absolutely. I think what happens is that people don't know the difference between opportunities and distractions.
Say that again.
When you don't know the difference between opportunities and distractions, you're bound to do too much. Put it that way. Yeah. Like, I'm such a fan of, listen, again, I shared, I love melanin millennial moms because I am one, and I get the press to make sure that there's more than enough, because you don't ever want to be without, especially with food shortages and things costing so much money. So it's easy to fall prey to all of these different jobs and not do them well, and then wonder why the employer. Remember when you were saying that, the employer wants you to do some work, and you're like, I don't need to do the work. Yeah, you do, and you're forgetting that this is a part of the master plan. So opportunities are things that you can explore to ensure that you're moving through the career cycle. It might not necessarily be in alignment with your specific career. Maybe you're exploring some of those hobbies, but distractions deter you from the actual plan. But when you don't know what the plan is, you can fall prey to it. And, it's so funny that you asked that question, because I watched a documentary series, I think it was last week, about a particular company, a particular multi-level marketing company. And one of the things I saw over and over again was that moms were falling prey to this scheme because they presented it as an opportunity. It's an opportunity to pay your bills, but they were distracted by the evidence that showed them you're putting in a lot of money, a lot of time. You're not getting training or support. You're not being developed as a person in this particular company. I'm not going to mention the company, but if you watch the documentary, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And so it really showed me that we can be prone to those distractions. Now I can get on my mental health soapbox about, what some of the things that make us more vulnerable to the distractions, but you really got to ask yourself, especially for those who know the power of prayer. God revealed to me, is this an opportunity or is it a distraction?
Yeah, we will, in this conversation, the thing that Jessica and I are passionate about that even served as a catalyst for us moving forward with this calling and careers thing is that your faith and relying on your faith doesn't have to be connected from having a progressive professional career. Like you can have an authentic, progressive, like game-changing career and impact in your industry and in your space and not have to turn your faith off to do that. And so I think a part of what Jessica's alluding to here is if you are a person of faith, you really have to take a step back and invite God to give you peace or give you some sense of clarity on the opportunities that you take. Like pause for a second, call a time out, and say, is this something I really should be doing? And here's the second thing, right? And these are things, the reason why we don't like this is because it requires us to slow down, right? We don't like to slow down. But the other thing that's good is the people that know you well, the people that are in your circle, ask their opinion. If they're in your circle, they should be wise enough, discerning enough, mature enough to give you wisdom and insight and direction. There's this verse that I love, Proverbs 13, I think it is, that says, the person that walks with the wise becomes wise. So I think we really have to leverage mentors and those that are mature, those that are further down the road than us in some spaces, even in some of these decisions. Anything you want to add to that, Jessica?
Oh, I could add to it. We could talk for hours because as you're talking, one, you were all in the book of the book of Proverbs, which is what my company is named after because it's so much wisdom there. Right. And the scripture it was named after was Proverbs 15:22. And I'll say the career space model that I learned from the biblical concept is that you need to have a career executive board. And so no business would ever have, would only operate after one person. You need to have different professionals. You got the CEO, the CFO, the person who's doing the research and development in order to make sure that the company's meeting its financial goals. And you should treat your career like the business that it is. So you want to make sure that you've got your career executive board in place. So when you said mentor, I want you to know there's 4 people you need to have in your corner. That's your role model, your mentor, your coach, and your sponsor. And maybe we can get into that in a different episode.
Hold on. Slow down. Yeah, give them again. And we are going to get into those in another conversation.
Absolutely. So your career executive board includes your role model, your mentor, your coach, and your sponsor.
Now stop. You have to follow us to get the rest of that.
You see, he has to stop because I get on the road. But you need it. So work on it. You need it.
I love it. Listen, y'all, I'm excited about what's going to take place in these discussions, these conversations. I'm honored, Jessica, to be a co-host with you here on these conversations, these Christ-centered career coaching conversations. How about those C's? I'm excited about it. And y'all, this is going to be really, really fun. Y'all follow us, check in with us, share with other people about it because we're coming for it. We're going to give you everything we got, and we want to make a difference. And then also, again, connect with Jessica. She has an amazing platform where she does career coaching and consulting and development. Check out my platform, diversechurchjobs.com. We'd love to have you connect with us for those of you that are in ministry or considering a full-time career in ministry in some way. And together, we're going to help you figure out your calling. We're going to help you figure out your career. Have an amazing day, everybody. Peace.